Good afternoon. Good afternoon. How are we? Welcome along. Inspire and be inspired. Yours truly, Andy Ward. Time for another inspirational conversation with the occasional life hacks. It's a pleasure to have your company. This evening, we are at a slightly earlier time as myself and my guest are coming to you live and direct from Spain. And we want to get finished early before it gets too late. The sun is still high in the sky for us. So I'll say hi and thank you for being here, and a shout out to everybody who's coming back to pick up the recording. We are talking this evening about all things relationships. My guest, Nicola Farnhill, is joining me. I will bring her onto the stream and I will say good evening. How are you, Nicola?
I'm great, thank you. How are you, Andy?
I'm very good indeed. I'm very good indeed. Always happy at the beginning of the show, as most people will know every week, that all of my equipment is working fine and I don't have any technical issues. So the conversation today is relationships, more specifically the art of, what did we call it? The art
The
of
art of
building.
improving relationships.
The art of improving relationships.
Simple topic.
I did actually have the full text to read out that you gave to me because it was very on point, and in my infinite wisdom, I put it on a screen that I can't actually read now. So before we get to that, let me ask you, if you wouldn't mind, to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are, where you are, and what it is that you do.
Who I am. Wow, $1 million question. Okay, I'll simplify who I am because I can rabbit on for hours. So basically, I am 50 something, introverted extrovert or extroverted introvert. I'm a life coach. I'm a friend. I'm a lover. I'm passionate about animals, justice, chocolate, dancing, and living and living.
Wow.
I
We,
live
we
on the
sound like
coast of
kindred
Lancashire.
spirits.
I think when you get to a certain age, Andy just like, you know what, I just don't care anymore, and it's just great. I think it's really funny. Somebody said to me the other day, one of my old school friends, "Oh my God, I feel so old," and I'm like, I'm so happy to be this age, so happy to just be completely me and not kind of like be worried about all those inhibitions and am I doing the right thing, and you just kind of get to a certain age and you can breathe easy. And I
Sounds
think,
great.
I'm an easy breather as well.
Good, good. Well, you are now after feeling better after recent
I
times.
am. So what am I? My background, my mum was a counsellor and a white witch. So
Wow.
very interesting upbringing. Everything controversial, would question everything, which I loved. So there was not much chance for me to fit into the conventional world, really, which was a bit of a challenge. So previously, social worker, counsellor, therapist, life coach. I've done the whole caboodle, basically. Interestingly enough, you were saying earlier about the girl that you were interviewing a couple of weeks ago as a trauma therapist. And all my interests, and you probably picked some things up off her, which are pretty much the same. All my interest and passion, apart from my mum being a bit of a crazy, comes from my own trauma. And I think we find that with a lot of people that are into this background, that are kind of following this path. There's a new age, stuff coming up now. Everybody's changing. We're being forced to look at our stuff, which is really difficult and challenging. But it's all coming from trauma at the end of the day. Our pain is our biggest area of growth. So, for me, I'm passionate about people being happy and getting what they want out of life and what they deserve.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful to hear.
Yeah.
And I definitely agree with everything that you've said. There's so many memes that you see online that I'll try to reel off and they've gone completely out of my head. But basically they're saying the people who tend to try and help the most have been broken the most themselves at some point.
Absolutely that. And it's really funny because I said to one of my clients the other day, and she was like, "Say that again, I'm going to write it down." And I said to her, the thing is, she said, why is it that a lot of creatives have a lot of mental health issues or being traumatized or whatever? my honest belief is that when you've been taken beyond heartbreak and pain, when you were young and you didn't have the ability to understand it, to put it into a box or put it somewhere where it was going to be understood, then when you felt extensively, then when you get older, there's a part of your brain, a part of your heart, of your soul that's been opened up. You know, you feel deep. It's like, you know, a lot of my friends have, you know, and I'm sure if they're watching now, they'll be cursing me, but I'm not going to name names, had trauma. And they're all creative, passionate, deeply feeling people, you know, that really want to make a difference. And I think it's such a gift. Our pain can be such a gift. Mine certainly is, but you've got to get over that hill first. Mm-hmm. You know, you've got to get past that. But it is, when you can get past it, it's definitely a gift. So for me, all the best creative people, you only have to look at the famous people, you know, in the past, the real famous people, if you look at their backstories, they've all been like mega traumatic, painful, you know, and we're soul searchers, absolute soul searchers that just look beyond their everyday life. And thank God for us.
Well, you've already touched me. I've only been talking to you for 7 minutes.
Hey!
And you're getting me choked up already listening to some of that. So
it's true,
beautiful.
Isn't it, though? If you look at all the famous people with their backgrounds,
mm-hmm.
a lot of them die early, but when they pour their life and soul into their passion, it's because they felt on a level that I don't think a lot of people that haven't been really hurt have felt on. But it's an amazing place to create from.
I agree. And a lot of my friends who will be watching this will relate to the fact that we all know so many creative people who are really teetering on the edge of insanity and brilliance at the same time. You know,
genius virgin on a nutcase.
There you go. Yeah.
You know,
I feel naked in front of you.
no disrespect to people that have got mental health, because it's different. But yet, you know, talking to a lady yesterday that had some serious psychiatric problems, and she's an amazing actress, amazing. And she said, it's my saviour and my therapy. And if you watch this lady in action, you'd be like, she has got her stuff together. But yet outside of that place, she's struggling. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's. But what do we do? Because I certainly in the past have struggled with lots of issues. You know, but I know that when I'm on it and I'm doing some good stuff. So would I want to get rid of that craziness and that past? No. But I'm glad I'm out the other side, although I do dip in every now and then.
And so you put all of your experiences to great use by dealing with other people, helping other people. Just confirm for me exactly whereabouts you are, because it was a mutual friend of ours who put me in touch with you, Julie Day. Yeah. So I want to say thank you to Julie. Thanks you for
Julie.
The hookup. Very briefly, explain to me how you know Julie and exactly where you are.
Julie, I'm in Torrevieja, near Alicante.
Okay.
So in
not far. Blanca. 15 minutes up the road from me.
Yeah. And I met Julie. Julie and I are both writers. Again, the creative stuff. I'm not going to talk about Julie's background. She's as sane as anything. but yeah,
I've met Julie.
You know Julie. Like, she'll be defriending me before we know it. So Julie and I met, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 years ago. We're both writers, and Julie actually passed on. Before that, we used to do stuff together, but before that, she passed on a writing job to me with a life coach in America that was dyslexic but had an amazing story. So I actually wrote the book for her. And Julie passed on that work to me, which was an absolute blessing.
I actually forgot that Julie was a writer, because she's such a great DJ and she's doing so well now. I forgot I met Julie through journalism, actually, if memory serves me correct. So I think that's the background of yourself, very perfectly put together in the opening 10 minutes. We are here to discuss the art of building relationships. We're going to focus on personal, emotional relationships. Well, all relationships are emotional. Personal, work relationships as well, because there are two different kinds. Before we go there, I just want to say again, I'd like to make this as interactive as possible. I can see we do have people watching, so please feel free to comment, leave any remarks, and I will pass them on to Nicola at some point when there's a break in the conversation. Okay, so where do we begin? The art of building relationships. What is the crux of a relationship? How do you define a healthy relationship?
That's easy. One word: humour.
Okay.
No, lots of humour. No, I think, you know what, for me, regardless whether it's a relationship with God, with anybody, it needs to begin with an intention. You know, we have lots of conversations from childhood. We're dictated to at school about IQ. We need to be intelligent. But there's little discussion or precedence put on emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. Most people, if you ask them to define it, describe it, what is it, emotional intelligence, would have no idea. I didn't before, you know, especially if they've got some trauma or some mental health issues or just not balanced or understanding about the way relationships work. So a lot of people, you know, are just bouncing around, hurting other people without any bad intentions. So I think one thing we must focus on, and I've done a little bit in schools recently with this kind of thing, and hope to do more, because there's no teachings in schools about emotional intelligence. We need to have an intention and an understanding of how we affect other people. And I think if we went out every day and had an intention to purposefully leave everyone feeling better for being with us, you know, just hold that thought for a moment. Can you imagine? Because we're all influencers. Imagine if we just set that intention every day. You know, that for me is one of the keys to creating better relationships for a start. Because from that place, we can look at then answering questions. I don't understand. You know, can you explain this more? Rather than going into protection and defense, which we often do. Feeling criticised. If we can come from a place of positive intention with everybody we're interacting with, that would be an amazing place to start. Just by doing that makes me think about how I could improve myself. Do I communicate well? You know, do we ever ask ourselves or ask other people, how do I communicate? Do you think I express myself well? Or do you need me to explain more or go a little bit deeper with things? You know, sometimes we're very frightened to ask other people how we are received by them. And I think, you know, for fear of being rejected, particularly men, for example, or often suppressed in childhood. You know, there's the old phrases, man up, you know, boys don't cry, that kind of thing, which makes relationships, and it's still happening today, intimate relationships, really, really difficult. You know, it's like I was previously, a couple of months ago, working with a client in the UK, and he was struggling with his new boss. And they were training him to do a new job. And he's someone that learns through simply doing things as opposed to observing, because we all have different ways of learning. Some people are dead practical. Let me keep doing it, and I get a memory there. And he came away after 2 days and said to me, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not going back. And I said to him, what's the problem? And he said, I can't learn as quick as they want me to learn. And I said, have you told them how you learn? And he said, no. And I said, why? And he said, because I'm in a male environment and I feel that I just need to be able to just jump on it like everybody else. And I said to him, but you really wanted this job and you've worked really hard to get to this place. And he said, I know. I said, before you pack it in, I said, go back tomorrow and just go to the boss and explain that you love the job and you know, you're a really good worker and you've got a lot to offer, but you learn differently. And he went back and he called me the next day, and well, I was nearly in tears, and so was he. And he said to me, the boss said that he apologised, and he said that I'm really sorry. We need to work on this more, and I'm really glad you brought it to our attention. We're going to jump on it now. We're going to make sure we ask questions when people start with us in order to give everybody the same opportunity And I was like, oh my God, you're a change maker. You know,
Mm.
and imagine if someone asked you when you went to a new job, for example, because these relationships are important. You know, like you said earlier, you're all your life at work, or the majority. Somebody said to you when you started, how do you learn? Tell me what you need.
Hmm.
In any relationship, tell me what you need right now. I can see you struggling. What do you need? But when do we do that?
It's very
You
rare.
know,
It's very difficult, as you say. Now, you commented on something earlier. It's okay. I'm just trying to open up my comments here because I can see that the comments are coming in. So, hi, Cliff. Thank you for replying. I can see it's all working fine. You mentioned earlier about not everybody has, people do go around hurting others
yeah,
without actual bad intention because it's something that
yeah,
has affected them in the past.
yeah, yeah.
And so it's a big step for them to see out of that. That was just one thing that I'd wrote down that I wanted to focus on. But what you were just saying there reminds me very much of uh, a course that I did last year with a good friend of mine who is also a life coach. And it's
Mm,
called E-Colors. It's part of the Equilibria, and it's with regards to our different personal traits and the different personalities and your strengths and your limiters with how you communicate with people. And that sounds
yeah.
very much exactly in line with what you're saying.
We got to know ourselves really well. It's like for me, you know, if we don't know ourselves, then how can we express ourselves? If we don't ask questions, you know, about do you think I communicate really well? Is there any area that I can communicate better? We're all kind of want to deliver the best, but yet we're not aware of ourselves enough. You
Hmm.
know, we need to be in that place of, it's like, for example, you know, if you're someone that's, a lot of people have relationships, intimate relationships, and they say have a definition of what their relationship, what that person needs to look like and be like. But they rarely ask themselves, am I a match to that person? Because if you're someone that likes to chill out every night and lays on the sofa and not do anything, and you want someone that's really active and super fit and then how is that going to align? For
Hmm.
me, you've got to be thinking about what you're bringing to the table. Not what tends to happen is everybody calling everybody else out and telling them what they're not bringing to the table.
Yeah. So
You
it's
know?
that comes back down to the beauty of the best relationships are built on. I mean, compromise can be seen as a negative word, but it's also I think it's a really empowering word because you
And
do have to find
values.
that balance, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And values for me is massive. I mean, there was a survey done recently. It's been done lots of times, and they said they when we look at it, intimate relationships, the longest lasting ones all come down to values. You know, it's like if your values are different to someone else, then you're going to come into conflict. If you, for example, like to treat people really well and a very giving, caring person, and your partner's someone that's very mean and tight and very self centered, then how is that going to work out? You know, but do we ever, is it feasible to sit down with a prospective partner and say, what are your values? I think it is. I think it is.
A job interview.
A little questionnaire. I've got one. If I'll post it here, it's really useful. People can pick up on it. No, I'm joking, but I think you know, if you've got a cycle of relationships that haven't worked out, or you've got a cycle and you know a pattern of behaviour, falling out with people, of conflict, you've got to take responsibility for that. So many people I hear, and I'm sure you've heard it yourself, and everyone has. If she didn't do this, if he hadn't have done that,
Mhm.
then everything will be okay. But where's the personal responsibility? You know, none of us want to take that responsibility, but yet if we did, our relationships would be all amazing. You know, the first one to put your hand up and say, I'm a part of this as well. What did I do wrong? Yeah, we find that in the workplace a lot, you know, and feeling powerless sometimes in the workplace. I think that's why more and more people are choosing to work for themselves now because we feel kind of indispensable.
All right. So let's focus on the workplace relationships then before we get into the nitty gritty of the emotional, personal relationship. So at work, the art of building a relationship.
Okay.
Do you
I
think
think,
more could be? Carry
go
on.
on, go on, no, go
No,
on,
you were
go
going to
on.
say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say the first thing, as I said earlier, would be for me, um, knowing yourself and how you learn and what you need in order to do the best in your job, and not being able to not being fearful of voicing it.
Okay, but what if someone takes on a role, and because many people who will go to work, as you say, they want to portray that they are the best person for that role, and by asking questions like you suggested, it may come across as showing signs of weakness. It may come across that they are not giving confidence to their bosses, that they can just be left to their own devices. Is the
Mhm.
interview process wrong the way that it's done?
I'm getting excited now because they've just had a massive light bulb moment. Um, it's all down to vulnerability. Everything in relationships down to vulnerability. A relationship is about that. We all want that deeper connection, whether it's through the workplace. We want to feel we belong and that we're part of something. And so therefore we often step away from vulnerability. It's only through vulnerability that we actually get them deep connections that we actually truly desire. Being understood, being vulnerable. It's like most people see vulnerability as a sign of weakness, when in fact, vulnerability is actually speaking your truth. And that phrase in itself, speaking your truth, is just like most people will probably take a breath like, I can never say what's really going on in here. But I think if we're all open and we can create that space for each other, in an ideal world, it would be wonderful for us to be in a place where someone could speak their truth and we would not be offensive or defensive or protective, and that other person would know that before they spoke. Can you imagine how that would be?
Liberating, extremely liberating.
We would have the freedom to speak and truly be ourselves.
That's a little bit idealistic though, because in a world where we have this crazy cancel culture, we have this society where people are afraid to speak their mind because there are a lot of bad-minded people out there. What you're saying, your idea of utopia, doesn't sound like the direction that society is going right now.
It's not, and that's why I'm talking about it. because I have such faith. I have faith in humanity in the sense of I know who we are. I know who we all are behind the mask. We all want the same thing. We want love, connection. We want to experience joy and happiness. But love and connection are the utmost. Without it, there's little satisfaction in material things, in value. Yes, we have moved a long way from vulnerability and love and connection. That's for sure. Whether that's I'm not going to go too much in where to blame it, but I would say the media, and what goes on in the world has a huge impact. But I think at the end of the day, we've got to be talking about it, because to me, just having a conversation and being this open is liberating, like you say. And I think if we can get comfortable with it, yes, there are people that are going to reject it because it makes them uncomfortable. But I know that underneath, they really want to be the same. Because it's like when you meet someone for the first time and you have this really honest and open conversation and you're vibing with them. It's simply because you're being real. When we meet someone and they're kind of pretentious and we can feel their vibe, we can feel they're not being
It's
honest,
a
and we don't
frequency,
connect with them.
a bad frequency.
Absolutely that. So yes, it might be an ideal world, but I don't think it's unachievable, because in my opinion, for what it's worth, I truly believe that we all want that. None of us feel comfortable when we're misunderstood, when we're not connected. the worst thing in the world to be with someone you love or someone you care about or somebody that's important in your life and feel like there's a pink elephant in the room. It's this connection that makes us so unhappy. So yes, it is idealistic. However, I believe it's within all our capabilities, but someone's got to make the move.
I get you. So talking about making the move, if people are watching this and they themselves they are already thinking about that person who they work with, they dread seeing on a daily basis, that they know is, the grey cloud over their head. How do you start to repair those? Because there is a stubbornness involved sometimes.
Yeah, very much.
So who, you have to be it's the same with falling out with friends, family. The first to forgive is the first to, whatever the phrase is. I'm useless at these quotes, but you have to be the bigger person.
You do, and it's not what it is. It's about, again, vulnerability, speaking your truth, getting into a place where you feel worthy of being treated really well.
Right.
Because there's a lot of value and worth around this as well. There's a lot of people that maybe have had a low self-worth and feel like I'm not worthy of any more, and I'm not surprised people treat me this way. And that's a cycle in itself, which needs dealing with. So for me, it's about finding that place inside yourself and just knowing that you are worthy and that you have to be in control of your own life, and the results in your life actually reflect where you're coming from as a person. If you've not got something in your life, this might not be received very well, but it's your fault.
That's true.
We are responsible for the own results. So for me, to put it in brief, if there was someone difficult in the workplace, then I would personally, go to that person. I would say, you know what, I love my job. I really want to be able to get on with everybody here. Can we sit down and we can talk about where things have gone wrong? Because I'm sure both of us would rather come to work and everything flow and be easy as it can be, and learn to communicate really well. That's got good productivity for work. It means your work environment's healthy. If we don't want to get up in the morning and go to work, we got to take responsibility for that. How it's received is how it's received, but you've done your part, like you said. You've done your part. So, yeah, it is idealistic as well. However, I do know that people that I've worked with that have had challenges, they have had really good results, because what we sometimes perceive is going to happen is the exact opposite. And we can walk out of it like, wow, I never would have thought. Maybe that person feels relieved. I actually was a little bit worried about approaching you, but I'm really glad we can sit down and talk about this. Because, again, nobody wants to spend 75% of their life in an uncomfortable environment.
No, true. Again, this comes back to so many memes, so many cliches, that I would attempt to reel off that I can't, about, the fear of actually not doing it is, it's ridiculous, really, because you're the one who's manifesting all of the doubts that might not actually be the reality.
Projection's a massive thing when we come to alignment. Our fears manifest. And they do. We create it. We put that energy into it. We are creators at the end of the day. And so we have to take responsibility. If your life hasn't got the results you want, you have to take responsibility for that. And the sooner you do, and get help if you need to, because for me, in my opinion, I've got a coach. Everybody should have a coach. Everybody should have a therapist. I'm sounding a little bit American now. However, what's wrong with having someone that's got the knowledge, the experience to pass it on in order to make your life better? How can that not be a winner?
How can that not be a good thing? I agree. I agree totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so we skipped over the work relationships. Let's talk about personal relationships now. First of all, if someone, you mentioned it earlier, people have bad histories of relationships, they never tend to work out for whatever reason, and it is quite harsh. You say you have to put your big girl pants on and look at yourself and say, well, is it actually me?
It's always you. If you've got a cycle, it's what it is at the end of the day. Again, we look at that alignment, that attraction. I'm a true believer. We attract not only what we desire, what we're a vibrational alignment to, but we also attract what we need to learn from. So for me, if something fails and it keeps failing, then we have to look at, what part do I play in this? It could be, I think your guest a couple of weeks ago were talking about trauma. Sorry, I forgot her name, touched on this. The fact that we have the inner child, the young version of ourselves that gets damaged quite often when we're a child. And what happens is that hurt is kept alive within us. So a big person, an adult, can enter into a relationship, but the inner child, the hurt child part of us, is actually running the show. So it's like, you won't imagine two children trying to have a adult relationship, and that's what you see. You see it quite often. You see bickering, you see, childish behaviour, you see, and it's basically like looking at two children.
Wow. I've never contemplated that before. That it just makes so much sense.
Whole new level.
It makes so much sense.
So you're bringing your child to the table. Because you see a big person, you think it's now the big person has got the intention of having the relationship. That's for sure. But the problem is if that big person has no idea that the young version of themselves is running the show and trying to get their needs met and also projecting the pain onto the other person. Like, for example, if you were criticised as a child, and every time in your adult relationship, your partner calls you out over something, even in a nice way, that's going to hit a nerve. And that's going to make your inner child, the hurt part of you, retaliate and feel that pain from childhood. So you can imagine the impact. It's like touching a raw nerve. So the comeback from that is going to be massive.
And that comes back to me saying people who experience trauma in their childhood, who isn't necessarily immediate, because I've said on many occasions, we all have, these stories of our youth, of growing up, and so many things have happened. I've said on many occasions, I would love to sit with someone and let them inside my head, because I'm sure there's so many things that have happened to me when I was younger that have created the person that I am, the way that I deal with things, the way I respond to things. But I am currently on a journey to research that, find it and improve on it and make sure it doesn't happen again. I believe I'm a better person for that. But listening to everything that you've just said, it makes me think that, everybody definitely should seek help. Everybody
I've got one, and when I go, I just go, bleh. And then sometimes it goes, sometimes it's like, but again, if we want a relationship or, good relationships ourselves, we got to look at what we bring into the table. We got to do our part. And so if there's stuff you keep thinking, oh God, I keep reacting a bit badly to that, and that's touching a real nerve, and that's, why can't I be as empathic, or why am I so tearful? We got to look at what part of me maybe just needs a little bit of soothing in a positive way. Because then we got to look at the addiction side of things. Self-soothing in a negative way is all comes on from trauma, and we see it a lot in relationships. It's that feeling of, do we soothe in a positive way? Do we find out how we can soothe the inner child within ourselves, which means basically we just need to be loved and nurtured and feel like someone's not going to leave and they're not going to criticize. It's I can see you smiling like, oh my God. but
yeah.
But it's all those little but they're child fears that stop us from having the relationships that we're really deserving of. And so we should do the work.
I said to you earlier there, and also as well, most of the times, unless of course someone's in an abusive relationship, when relationships break down, there is no right or wrong really, because you have two separate individuals who both have their own issues, if
Yeah.
that's the right word, to deal with.
Yeah.
And so many times one person is screaming out for, to be noticed, and the other person is thinking, well, I think I am noticing you, but there's a breakdown in the communication there.
Absolutely. And also, it's about understanding what you need and being, as I say, being able to say it. And it is, relationships are so complex because we're complex, but, there's a big fear about, we talk about the ego, letting go of the persona that we've created being seen as being wrong. For example, again, if you were criticized as a child, the chances are that you're going to be someone that struggles with having people point out when you've made a mistake, and it's having that ability to look at yourself and take that responsibility without feeling that it's all on you, because it's a two-way street. And it is a two-way. You talked earlier then just about where we talk about attachment styles, and that was a typical example. You've got an anxious attachment is someone that needs a lot of close attachment all the time. And then you've got an avoidant attachment, whereas someone that wants love but is fearful of it. And this dynamic is codependency, and it happens all the time. Initially, two people get together, they both want love. There's always one person that needs more. And if there's a lot of healing that needs to take place, you'll find this constant pattern of moving forward and the other person moving away, moving forward, the other person moving away. And it's so sad, because if people don't understand what they're doing wrong and destructive, and that healing the trauma from the past hasn't taken place, then these relationships fall apart. It is very difficult to heal codependency, but it is possible. But we have to take responsibility. We have to look and think, it may be about me. Maybe I'll just go and speak to someone and explore how I can be better.
Mm-hmm.
And that in turn creates a better relationship with yourself, doesn't it?
It does. It does. You also said earlier that sometimes relationships do break down. I mean, I want to put a very positive spin on this conversation rather than a negative spin. So let's bear that in mind. But what I will continue to say is relationships do break down. And you did say earlier that sometimes, sometimes people aren't necessarily meant to be together forever, right?
No, this is my opinion for what it's worth. I think on a spiritual level, I think we're all vibrational beings, and alignment is everything. It's how we connect, how we draw people in for work, for relationships, for sports, for hobbies, for creativity. It's all about what's inside us, what we desire, and where our vibrations are. So with that in mind, I kind of think that sometimes we outgrow people because our vibration changes. If you marry someone when you're young, for example, and you've both got that vibrational alignment, you've got a lot in common, you want the same things. All right, you may want a family and 2 kids. That happens. And this happens a lot, the children move out and they haven't thought past that time. And then you've got one that thinks, right, I'm going to go out there and do all the things I couldn't do. And the other one's kind of lost and feels left behind, and without those conversations.
You're going to start making me cry in a minute. You're really going to start.
But again, there's also that I do believe that people can stay together forever. However, I think sometimes it doesn't work because it's not supposed to. And that can be in a work situation, in a relationship situation. We grow. We're meant to grow. The whole purpose of us being here on this planet is to discover who we are and to fulfill that and be the best person we can be, whoever we're with.
And that can lead to final part of this. That can lead to resentment when one wants to grow and attains the success. The one that feels left behind then can start to resent their partner.
Absolutely. And that's, and it's terribly sad. But again, we are responsible for the results in our life. And so with that in mind, I think it would be wonderful if we could see the kind of, I know I've got a friend that works with women that tend to lose their identity a little bit when they become mothers and feel that as well. And I think it would be wonderful if we could all take some time to get to know ourselves. And I'm not saying we should all be driven career people or whatever, but to follow your heart and to incorporate in your day as much as you can of things that light you up, because I think the worst thing we could do is put responsibility on somebody else for the whole of our happiness. That's too much pressure. We've got enough on dealing with our own happiness, haven't we? Never mind anybody else's.
We have indeed. Well, that was very poetic. So let's brush ourselves down and say, right, so we want to move forward. We want to create that perfect relationship. Things are not exactly where they should be, but we're confident we can step it up. This is the beginning of the rest of our lives. Tell me about the art of building that relationship. Oh, by the way, my wife is listening. She says, I love that. Follow your heart. She's currently in a transitional period right now. Let's just say
Brilliant.
She's in her phoenix mode. She's definitely finding herself, and I'm very proud of her. We've been together 30 years now.
Amazing. So, that's wonderful.
I don't know how she puts up with me. I really don't. Okay, so yeah, let's continue with on a positive angle now. Tell me some of the great things that you have achieved, some of the great things that immediately spring to mind when we talk about the art of building relationships.
Okay, I'm going to go really deep here now, and this will be a tearjerker. I had a, sorry, Daddy, he'll get me for this afterwards, a horrendous relationship with my father. And my dad was brought up in a Victorian kind of family home where, you know, things weren't always amazing. His dad was very disciplinarian, which was typical after the war kind of thing. You know, it was very kind of harsh. He had 4 boys. So my dad had no kind of concept of emotion. His mum was ill for a lot of his childhood. And so therefore I was the only child, had a very loving mother, but a father that struggled with affection. And from that, I developed an inferiority complex. You know, I would get the comments at school like, oh, you must be Daddy's princess, because my dad was an amazing provider, a real provider. I had everything, horses, we had holidays. I was like really well provided for. But the one thing that I really wanted was love, which is obviously the prime thing. And so that brought a lot of difficulties and challenges for me, inferiority complex. You know, because as children, if we don't get what we desire and what we need, we tend to reflect on ourselves and think it must be gone.
Can I ask you a question? I'm sorry to interrupt your flow. Was this apparent at the time, or was it in hindsight that you looked back and realised how this affected you? Because I'm very curious if you knew that at the time.
Okay. I would say that because my mum was a counsellor and a white witch and very spiritual and very therapeutic in her background, it became apparent, fortunately, when my mum and I discussed and I asked questions about why my dad was like he was with me. I was about 14, 15, and I'd just basically had enough. You know, I'd had enough. And, you know, going through those teenage years is really difficult. And so my mum kind of, with her background, I was really fortunate. She explained a lot. I wouldn't say that it did solve a lot, but it was because I wasn't at 15. Are we able to put that in place and understand and have that level of compassion? No, we're still in that selfish meet my needs mode, basically.
Yeah.
So it manifested in breakdown of relationships, didn't understand what I was doing wrong. The inner child presented itself in most relationships as quite protective and defensive. I had a lot of anger. And then I kind of went down the therapeutic road, learned a lot more about myself, still struggled because obviously it was still in my life. And then my mum died. And then I had to make a decision. I had to make a decision whether I wanted a relationship and to continue trying to pursue a relationship with my dad. And we had about 5 or 6 years of battling. I had to let down my protection, my defense. I had to go into vulnerability. Now you imagine being vulnerable with a man that had caused you a lot of pain. You know, daddy's princess, but I wasn't. I was, but he never showed it. Bought me things and did what he could.
Mm-hmm.
And so we battled. I'm sure if he's listening now, he'll be laughing a lot. I threw him out of the house. He threw me out of his house. I wanted that relationship, and I knew because of my work that it was doable. So we battled and we transformed together. And now we have a really, really good relationship. Is it perfect? No. Is any relationship perfect? No. However, I decided that I was going to change and see if he would change with me. And it was tough, really tough. However, I think in a lot of cases it's doable. I'm not going to say that a lot of people shouldn't walk away if there's narcissism and it's abusive. It wasn't abusive. With my background, I knew it was a fear of opening his heart. But I knew, like I said earlier, that underneath we all want the same thing.
I've just got to say, getting a lot of love for that story from Ruth Blackwood, who's just been watching, giving a big like to that. I also know someone, I'm going to share this video to them after the event and let them know that I know has issues with their father. Many people have issues with their family's trauma. And as you say, you hit the nail on the head. Sometimes it is safer, if that's the right word, to walk away from a relationship if there's not. But you believe you at least owe it to yourself to try.
I knew there was a lot of growth for me in this as well. A lot of growth for me in this, a lot of healing of my heart to step out of the pattern that him and I had created. And because I stepped out of the pattern, so did he. So it wasn't just for the relationship with him, it was for myself as well.
For yourself, to free yourself. Yeah, that's a positive story. That's a positive story. So yeah, people have issues with their families, you know. I keep torturing myself for not being able to reel these cliches off the top of my head. Something about, you know, we can't choose our family.
But we can choose our friends.
Yeah, exactly. Our friends are the family that we choose or whatever.
Absolutely.
So that's beautiful, you know, being able to repair. And then in the relationship, in a marital relationship, you know, a relationship of love for people to push on through issues that they may have. The key thing first and foremost, is it better for someone to look within themselves first or to have a conversation with their partner?
I think it would be nice if they could have a conversation with their partner and just say to their partner, I take my responsibility, my part of the responsibility in this relationship. And I know that there are things that I need to change because, you know, it's a 50-50 thing. And I think you go into that relationship not wanting anything back, not wanting that other person to say, yeah, and I do too, it would be nice. But you went into it offering, I'm going to do this, I'm going to become better. What they do is up to them.
And that determines the next step, really.
Absolutely that. Because then we look at alignment, like we talked about earlier, when someone has worked a lot on themselves, we can often leave that other person behind, but it's a personal choice. And if we're to live from that mindset of, I'm going to deliver the best of myself every time I interact with someone else, if I can, that would be amazing. That would be a gift to not only ourselves, but to everybody else. just have that emotional intelligence to know that we are influencers, and every time we open our mouths, we are affecting other people.
I love it. I love it. I love your wisdom. I love the way you deliver it as well. One of the things that I did start off when we were talking, just doing the sound check, saying I have many friends who are life coaches. There are many life coaches out there. It's the same as there are many personal trainers. I was going to the gym for years and years and years. Somebody shared a thing on Facebook about nutrition. One guy wrote some words in a very specific way that made something click with me. Long story short, I changed my diet. My whole body changed because, the 10 years previously of me thinking I was doing well in the gym was a complete waste of time. I found the right path with this person. And you were saying, with regards to life coaches, pretty much there are going to be differences of opinion sometimes with and differences of approach with the language that's used. But you were saying it's all about alignment. You will know if you're talking to somebody, people will be listening to you now, will immediately feel connected to you. I know without a shadow of a doubt. So tell us about the strengths that you offer, in that aspect.
Okay. I think, for me, it is, again, a two-way street. It's a relationship. It's about always working from your heart. Forget this. We've got lots of wisdom and knowledge. We can pluck things out of the air. It's about having that good intention and about getting rid of the ego. This is not about, not a coach to me is not about someone that tells someone how to be. It's about someone that gets inside them and brings all the good stuff out. Because it's all there. It's like when I'm talking or I hear another coach talking or someone that's inspirational or, whatever. I think to myself, I know all this. Why do I know all this? Because all that we do is just pull it out. Just pull it out of people. We know deep inside. It's just that we cover it all up. So for me, I just pull all the good stuff out and just give people that hope and that inspiration and also, teach them the skills that maybe they've forgotten about. But I honestly believe at the end of the day, we have everything within us to be able to be the best person we can be. We even know, like we have that feeling like our guidance system. If we lie, if we betray ourselves, betray somebody else, we feel it. We feel it. We've got that intuition that sometimes we move away from, again with trauma, again with hurt, with pain. We move away from ourselves, we disconnect. That's the reason that I called my business what I called it, Connected to Self. Because when you start being honest with yourself, then yes, it can be a struggle to move away from things that have been in place that make you feel secure. But we're here for such a short term that we need to be true to ourselves. So for me, if I can listen to someone and intuitively see what they've disconnected from and pull that out of them and have them, them moments where they just have those aha moments, like, I know what I need to do. I'm not saying that I don't teach the skills, but what I'm saying is for me, it's more about pulling the good stuff out and allowing them a safe emotional space to heal. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned about the name of the business. While you've been talking, your website address is on the screen, connectedtoself.com. You work with people all over the world? Well, you said you were working with someone in the States.
Yeah. I work with people all over the world. It works really well online or in person, whatever people can do. My predominant focus is, or has been for many years, on working with people that have, and it's a broad spectrum, behaviours, belief systems, patterns of behaviour that come from trauma, pain from the past, stuff we carry, all the stuff we've talked about. Also, I incorporate heart healing, because a lot of the time when we've been hurt and we've got trauma, we function from here because we don't want to go here. And you'll find that a lot of people are very closed down emotionally. They're practical, they're unemotional, there's a disconnection. But the only place that we can really live if we want good connections and relationships with people is here. So, but it's a fearful place when this has been hurt, because, you probably know yourself, when this is hurt, there's a lot of pain. So I also work with heart healing and then create an amazing life from that heart healing place, that vibrational alignment.
Right. Alignment as well. I'm sure so many of my friends, so many of our friends relate to this when you mentioned about your relationship with your father. What about the other way around, when we need to improve relationships with our children? Because I've been there. I've got 2 kids. One's 21 Sunday, actually, and one's 22. We went through times where I wanted to strangle them. I don't advocate child abuse. I do not. But I wanted to kill both my children. And it was difficult. We got through it, of course. They're amazing kids. But some people do have real problems with their children and in their relationships. How do we deal with that? Of all ages.
I want to throw this out, and it's a biggie, but I know it works, is if you're a parent in a relationship, then be in alignment with your partner, both be coming from the same place,
supportive as a team.
Yep. And don't make the mistake, either the father or the mother, of putting the children first. They're not. Your partner's the first place. You're doing this together. Make decisions about your parenting style, and also ask your children what they need.
Yeah, but that's easier said than done. Again, if you're talking to an adolescent,
it's work. We got to do the work. Right, ask your children what they need.
I want to say hi to Claire, listening. Hiya, my love. She says, I gave my daughters one rule: don't lie to me and don't lie to yourself.
Yeah, beautiful.
But they, which is Tech 2, I'm not sure what that says, but they don't realise this. And I tend to be brutal with myself. So, hi, Claire. Probably didn't read that correct, or you didn't write it correct. That's your fault, not mine. So you were saying it's definitely strong, wise words there about coming together, a dual-pronged attack to, get this. But it does also come back to that stubborn point sometimes, right? We can be stubborn in relationships. And when you've got the emotional intelligence to be able to look at it in hindsight or take yourself out of the equation, it all sounds so easy. But
it does. But I think it's because most of us don't practice it. So it's like a new age kind of, that sounds great. However, because maybe that's because we've all got stuff to actually kind of still deal with within ourselves.
Oh, without a doubt, we've all got baggage. Everyone's got baggage, right? Completely.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think acknowledging that, and that, if you were to ask yourself on a monthly basis, where am I and could I be doing better? Sit down for 5 minutes and just think and reflect on what's going on and ask yourself what you want to improve. Take responsibility. The results are based on your actions and your beliefs and your alignment. We're also good at blaming other people and other situations. And if this hadn't have happened and that hadn't have happened, I'll be all right. But it's how we react that creates the feeling, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So Claire was saying technically 2 rules. Sorry, Claire. Now I understand. Well, Nicola, I mean, you talk so fantastically. I've really loved listening to everything that you've said. We've been talking for an hour. We could easily talk for another hour, but I think the crux of what you've said boils down to, in reflection, is that it is all about starting with yourself, right? Am I correct in taking that away from this conversation?
Every time, a better you, a better everything.
Oh, there you go. That's a t-shirt right there.
It is, isn't it? But isn't it true? And you get it, don't you? You get it. You feel it.
Totally, totally. On a journey myself that relates to everything that you've said. Everybody that watches this, everybody that follows me on Facebook, all of my friends, they know that I'm constantly on that journey of gratitude. Every morning I'm posting from the beach, I'm posting things that I'm happy about. And, you know, when just constant improvement every day is a new day.
And creating a good vibe, creating a good vibe within yourself. That's an interesting thing about, you know, just a kind of, if people are thinking about how can I be better, then to start bettering yourself, have the intention every day to make yourself feel good. And by focusing on, you know, looking around, because we can all see stuff that we don't like and what's going wrong, and that gives us a bad, heavy vibe. You know, seek out the good stuff. Seek out the good people.
Well, I've said walking along the beach many times that go out of your way to do something good for someone today, and I guarantee it's going to make you feel better. Is that wrong? You just got to do something good for yourself.
God, no. It's you know, like that giving and receiving. It's like when you go into a shop, and I'm not saying it's material, but like you see something and you think you know exactly who that's for, and you get excited just thinking about, you play that whole role about them opening and going, oh my God, you can actually feel that joy without purchasing that thing.
Mm-hmm. You know, I was starting to round up then, but I've got another question. If you've got another 5 minutes, if that's okay.
Yeah.
People who make statements, and there's no right or wrong here, I'm not attacking anybody, but people make statements about, I've got no one in my life, no one to answer to, no baggage, I'm happy alone, this is my life forever. Do you feel that can be the right way, or do you say to everybody, there's someone out there for everybody?
I think there's someone out there for everybody if you want it. I think that it's achievable to be happy within yourself, and I think it's work well worth doing to find happiness within yourself. Whether you have to have an intimate relationship or not in order to be happy, I don't think that's necessarily true. I do, however, feel that love and connection to others is vital.
Mm-hmm. I had someone comment to me earlier today, saying about they're struggling with the downtime when they're on their own. They have a great social life, but when they're at home alone, then they are struggling. So what would you? So that is about building more relationships, and as you say, it doesn't have to be intimate. But how would you say that someone can begin on that road to expanding and filling the gap of the alone time?
I think if they've got really healthy connections and they're connected enough, they need to look at, you've got to be careful with this, because I think we've got to learn to be, you know, we're human beings, not human doings. And so there's an element of, particularly if we're born in the Western world, we've always got to be doing something in order not to maybe feel sometimes things that we don't want to feel. When we sit with ourselves, sometimes we feel stuff, and then we'll jump up and say, you'll hear people sometimes.
Sometimes the silence is a little bit too loud.
Like the lockdown syndrome, wasn't it? Like, oh my God, I've got to sit here with myself. So I think you've got to ask yourself the question, how good am I at being? Because there has to be a balance. If we're doing, you'll hear people say, I've got to be doing all the time. And that to me is, there's a lot of people that are more active than others, all right. But if you've got to be doing from getting up to going to bed, I would say you need to ask yourself, what are you trying to avoid feeling? If you're trying to create different emotions all the time, why can you not sit with whatever comes up? There may be abandonment issues there. There might be, loneliness, all sorts of things. You know, it could come from the past. It could be one issue that's happened, and they relate that to every time I'm alone, I don't feel good. But I think we need to get that balance. It's really nice when you're in that place of being able to sit with yourself and being okay whether people are around or not. It's a nice place to be.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so I implore everybody to get in touch with Nicola. You offer one-on-one introduction
I do.
classes.
Yeah, one-on-one packages. I also do workshops, online stuff like intensives for healing the inner child, healing your heart, vibrational alignment. I've got loads of stuff coming up this year. A couple of retreats here. A friend of mine's got a lovely retreat in Creviente, and we do sound baths and vibrational stuff, full moon stuff, all sorts of kind of stuff that learns people how to connect with themselves, how to be better and deliver themselves in a better way.
Wow, sounds interesting. I might get involved with some of that.
Absolutely.
And there's, of course, I would assume a chance of a discovery call with you to see if the alignment's there.
Yeah, and not just that. I kind of offer people that I talked to initially an opportunity to experience what coaching's like with me. Because it's all about value, it's all about serving. It's a two-way street. I'm in this to kind of share and bring out the best in people. And so for me, it's about having an amazing connection. Where that goes afterwards is up to that person completely. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, Nicola, I will bring you back on at some point with more of my previous guests, because I think we've had a great conversation. I've really loved talking to you. Thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Nicola's website is on the screen, connectedtoself.com. She's also actually tagged in the description. So please send her a message just to say you enjoyed listening to her. Nicola, I'm going to say goodbye to everyone. So thank you very much. And I'll send you a message later.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Loved it. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, as we say goodbye to Nicola, at the end of all of these conversations, I'm just filled with joy. That went great. And we could have quite easily sat here talking for 2 hours. If you missed it tonight because it was earlier than usual, then I do apologise. But with these lighter nights coming in now, I want the back end of Tuesday night for myself. So every week, if my guests are able to, we're going to start at 6 o'clock UK time. And but as you know, the recordings are always there. Thank you, Claire, for commenting. Thank you, Ruth, for following the page and for liking throughout. Also, shouts out to Dev. Thank you. I saw Michelle was watching, and I do know we're going to get a hell of a lot of you coming back for the recording. I will draw my attention to the screen. Another chat that's going to be huge next week. Bleep and bass as fuck. A Yorkshire tale. I'm going to be talking to 2 gentlemen who are at the very beginnings of the UK acid house movement. Many will say that they're actually responsible for the uprising that took place over the subsequent years. Make sure you join me. Put a reminder in your phone. I'm waiting to get confirmation of the time back. So it's either going to be 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock next Tuesday night. If you're an acid house junkie, then you definitely need to be here live so you can comment to the guys. I draw reference to the logos that have been coming through the screen throughout the show. Thank you to all of my Access members. They are the people who are responsible for subscribing to me on a monthly basis. I'm not actually taking on any more subscribers at the moment, but I have changed the video at the end to give information on what that entails. I will bid you farewell. I'll say thank you again, and thank you to Nicola, an incredible guest. Enjoy the rest of Tuesday, folks. I'm out of here. I'm out of here now.